So we're back in not closed session. And first of all, now that we're back in open session, as soon as Shannon says that we are streaming again, then what I would like to do is accept, somebody make a motion to accept the presentation from TELUS as information, and then we can move on to the other motion. Councillor Klein.
And Council, you are now live.
Perfect, thank you, Shannon. And Dale Klein. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Klein.
Yep, Mayor Bros, I'd like to make a motion to accept the presentation from TELUS for information.
Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor to accept as information. Any discussion on that motion? Being none, I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor.
Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Cush.
In favor.
Councillor Klein.
In favor, and it only goes to show the problems we're having with the problems that Councillor Cush has been having this morning. We have to get this problem fixed, gentlemen.
Okay, Councillor McQueen.
In favor.
Councillor Govinlock.
In favor.
And I vote in favor. All right, now, Councillor Cush.
I'd like to make a motion to have administration collaborate with TELUS to find ways to better improve cellular service and internet services in Woodlands County.
Okay. Motion on the floor from Councillor Cush. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor.
Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Cush.
In favor.
Councillor Klein.
110% in favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor.
Councillor Govinlock.
In favor.
And I vote in favor. So, all right. So that's dealt with. So now we're back into our meeting procedure bylaw. My screen keeps timing out here, so I have to keep turning it back on. All right. Where did we leave off, Shannon? I'm getting lost here.
Mayor Burrows and Council, you still have Councillor Prestige's motion on the floor to give second reading to bylaw 573/21.
Okay. So, any discussion on that motion? Okay, I don't hear any, so I'm going to call the question for second reading. All in Councillor Rennie?
In favor.
Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
Councillor Cush?
In favor.
Councillor Klein?
In favor?
Councillor McQueen?
In favor.
Councillor Govinlock?
I am opposed.
Okay, and I vote in favor. So second reading is passed. Does anyone, Councillor Klein, go ahead.
Make a motion that council gives third reading to bylaw 573/21 meeting procedures bylaw.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Klein. I see Councillor Govinlock's hand is up. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
I would move that we postpone any further discussion on this particular bylaw until October 20th of this year, if possible. Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor to postpone. Sorry, there's two motions on the floor, so I'm going to accept the motion to postpone as well. And we'll have to I think I'd have this tabbed by now. Okay, if council would like to consider, it is debatable on its merits only and cannot go into the main question. So, does anyone wish to continue with the postponement, or speak to the postponing this until the 20th of October, or November? Okay, I vote Councillor Klein. I see your mic's open.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay, so no one wishes to speak to Councillor Govenlock's motion? All right, so I'm calling the question on the motion to postpone. Councillor Rennie?
Opposed?
Councillor Prestige?
Opposed.
Councillor Clush?
Opposed.
Councillor Klein?
Opposed.
Councillor McQueen?
Opposed?
Councillor Govenlock?
In favor?
And I'm opposed. So that motion's defeated. Okay. With that, I'll call the question on third reading. Councillor Rennie?
In favor?
Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
Councillor Cush?
In favor.
Councillor Klein?
In favor.
Councillor McQueen?
In favor?
Councillor Govenlock?
I would be opposed.
And I'm in favor. So that third reading is passed. And that will bring us down to, gosh, I jumped all over this agenda. That will bring us down to business arising. So 7.1 is going to be the firearms. 7.2 will be the passports. So does administration have anything to guide us on this firearms thing at this point in time? Mr. Frank?
Your worship, members of council, unfortunately, again, the lawyer is providing legal advice in regards to that matter and wasn't available for the conclusion of the time frame to get it out in the agenda and will be on the next council meeting.
Okay. I guess the floor is open to have a discussion on it then. Councillor Govenlock?
So the issue was brought forward because one individual on an adjacent parcel of land was discharging firearms from the early morning until the dark at night. Was approached by one of the neighbors to curtail his activities there, and was basically told to piss off, and if he didn't like it, call the RCMP. The enjoyment and rights of neighboring parcels of land, irregardless of the type of activities that occur, are just as important as the rights of the individuals who are engaging in certain activities on their property. But when the lives and the enjoyment of the landowners adjacent are at risk, it would be extremely unfortunate when safety is in question in this particular matter to have a victim before we get counsel to respond to the serious nature of this particular issue. You add alcohol or the use of alcohol to the use of firearms on this property, we have a Molotov cocktail in the making. And those individuals who came to me to express their concern over the behavior of this one individual were the focus of that particular concern that I brought forward to council. And of course, the issue got blown disproportionately out of context with the YouTube video that one of your friends put forward, Mr. Burrows, there regarding gun control in Woodlands County. This isn't about gun control. This is a matter of addressing the irresponsible, unsafe behavior of one individual. So when the RCMP don't take the matter seriously, then Woodlands County has a responsibility to look at options that it might be able to employ to address the safety issues in particular. The parcel of land is not posted, it is not fenced, and so the possibility of errant ammunition going astray in a residential subdivision where homes are within 100 meters of the individual's property are of utmost concern and not something that should be passed off readily. I didn't ask for a legal opinion. I asked for options that the county could discuss or the council could discuss with regards to addressing this matter. And one of those options should have involved a discussion with the RCMP or our own bylaw officers to look at how we can change the behavior of this one individual. I put forward the possibility of using the community standards bylaw as a mechanism to address the matter. Unfortunately, I have to express my disappointment that given a month, Mr. Frank, as the CAO administrative representative for the county, is telling me he didn't make any effort to find solutions for this matter until one day before this meeting. That's extremely frustrating and disappointing. These people's rights and their safety is extremely important. And so to that end, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of information on which to proceed, but I'm going to put forward a motion that very clearly directs administration to invite the RCMP to the next council meeting of October the 5th to respond to the concerns that have been brought to my attention, and I think the county diligently needs to address.
All right, thanks, Councillor Govenlock. So there's a motion on the floor to bring RCMP to the next meeting. And I see that, Mr. Frank, you had your hand up second here. Oh, no. Go ahead, Mr. Frank.
Your worship, members of council, a clarification from Mr. Councillor Govenlock. He keeps saying one day before council. I don't understand where he's getting that information. The information was asked by the legal opinion, and in accordance with the motion is to review the regulations that a municipality can impose on the use of firearms in Woodlands County and report back to council, right? Is so because of the regulation is a legislative item, is it would be very prudent to make sure that a legal opinion is obtained so that the information that is provided back to council is one that council can consider if making any further decisions on that matter. So again, clarification, it is in the hands of the lawyer.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Frank. So does anyone wish to speak to the motion on the floor from Councillor Govenlock? Councillor Prestige?
Mayor Burrows, it's Bruce. I think we should wait till we get the legal opinion before we talk to the RCMP, so we know what we're talking about before we talk to the RCMP.
Okay, Councillor Klein.
Thanks, Mayor Burrows, and I have to agree with Bruce to get the legal opinion, and then I'll tell you why. A number of years ago, when I think first or second term on council, I had a group of people here in Fort Assiniboine that asked me to see if I could work with them to set up a gun range on some crown property in the area. I went through the process, and the involvement of the federal government and to get it licensed and to follow the rules. Basically, the group I was dealing with basically says, no, this is pure and simple BS. The RCMP have to be involved in the process. It's a long, lengthy one. There's so many rules that have to be followed. Let's get the legal opinion first and then take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, it would seem then that if council wants to wait for the legal opinion, then a motion to postpone would be in order, unless you want to defeat the motion that's on the floor from Councillor Govenlock, because that would be the way that we would go. Councillor Govenlock, go ahead. I see your hand is up.
So everybody that has spoken previously is looking for a legal opinion. I don't know what the question is that people are asking to get a legal opinion on. The background that I've provided with the particular behavior of this one property owner has been put forward. Woodlands County has a community standards bylaw. The police have been called in the past, and I would like to find out what the RCMP's perspective in terms of their jurisdiction are on this matter. I didn't ask the question of whether a gun range is a federal jurisdiction or a federal matter. I would like to know what it is that you're looking for from a legal opinion.
Okay, so is there a motion to postpone, or Mr. Frank, did you have a? Oh, sorry, there's a hand up from Councillor Cush as well. I'll recognize Councillor Cush and then Mr. Frank. Go ahead, Councillor Cush.
Just before we get into the whole part about the backstory and whatever, I mean, getting the RCMP involved, all we have is speculation that they were not acting lawfully, they were not being safe. We you know, they were using alcohol. We have no proof or anything of that. So to keep that kind of out of play, all we have really is a noise complaint. The people didn't like the shooting, they didn't like the noise. There's no RCMP involvement in that said otherwise, so I feel we should wait for the legal opinion before we go and we start introducing more regulations on top of what's federally there already.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cush. Mr. Frank, did you have a question or comment?
Well, your worship, members of council, again, Councillor Govenlock should then keep speaking about his information that he provided to council. However, his motion that he made that administration has to adhere to is to review the regulations that a municipality can impose on the use of firearms in Woodlands County. Therefore, it's very clear that we would have to get a legal opinion on the regulations that govern around firearms.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Frank. Councillor Govenlock, you got your hand up. Did you wish to speak again?
Yes, there Mr. Cush is trying to talk about innuendo and speculation. There was no speculation. One of the neighbors involved in the incident that approached me directly went over to the property and approached that individual, was personally present and had a personal experience with regards to the firearm incident, of which I have brought forward there. And so it isn't speculation. These are facts there, and it's more than one individual that has brought this matter to my attention.
Okay, so are we going to do a motion to postpone this or what? Here's I'm going to weigh in on this. Just now, first of all, everybody's getting upset about some video that went around, and I seem to be getting fingers pointed at me. Let's look back on this discussion exactly as to how this happened at council. So we got a report from an individual councillor who had a report from a neighbor that something happened involving firearms. It was basically a noise complaint. Now it's turned into a safety complaint, alleges alcohol use, says the RCMP did not act. And it seems to be, and it's been repeated several times, that it's one individual. But at the table at the time, we were dealing with, he was talking about the gun range itself. He was talking about using the community standards bylaw to change the hours of some of these things and restrict the use of firearms. So the issue that I'm having with this is a little bit like having And keep in mind, we don't have a police report on this. We don't have anything from the RCMP. I haven't spoken to the individual resident. I don't know where they are. I don't know where things were being fired. I looked up a whole bunch of regulations. And basically, if you use a firearm in an unsafe manner, in the opinion of the RCMP, they can get after you. So, you know, I think, and I get where guns are noisy, and I understand that, but this particular thing seems to be a one-off issue. And I know that if I have a resident that comes to me and says, I saw a guy driving recklessly, so that's now third-hand information, I'm not going to go and change all my community standards bylaws or use my community standards bylaws to restrict the entire municipality. This is where enforcement, and this is where the RCMP, and having a conversation with the RCMP. But again, this is part of the problem with the way council goes about things, is instead of the information coming to council and then we make a decision on the motion or something like that, things get added to the agenda at the very last minute. Everything gets blown out of proportion, and we end up acting before we have all the information. And as much as people like to get upset about, you know, or saying that he has direct knowledge, in a court of law, what you have is hearsay. Councillor Klein.
Thank you, Mayor Burrows. I'm going to make a motion to postpone further discussion to our next meeting. I think that's going to give us the opportunity to get the legal opinion, and I'm pretty sure I know what they're going to tell us. There's not much we can do. That's going to give Councillor Govenlock an opportunity to get more information from said landowners, and I believe exactly what's going on. But if that's the case, then let's get something in writing. Verbal stuff doesn't work anymore. Let's get the information, and then we can proceed from there.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to postpone now, so we're dealing with the motion to postpone. So Councillor McQueen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mayor Burrows, I agree with you 100%. I think this has got blown right out of proportion over one individual. And it's not, the last thing you want to do is start changing all the rules in this county. And I've told different people that called the same thing. I'm a landowner. I have rifles, I have whatever. And the last thing I want to do is see something like that. And I don't know why. I was under the assumption when we made this motion, it was basically just to say, what could we do? And it was for one individual. It wasn't the whole county. And that's, I agree with you 100%. This is just getting a little ridiculous, and it's getting more and more and more. And it should have never got to this stage in the first place. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. We've got one more hand up. Councillor Govenlock.
Yeah, and of course, given the period in the year that this is happening with hunting season around the corner, we're likely to see an increase use of firearms addressed, and this particular property owner has a history of trying to sight his rifles in there. So yeah, it is a one issue situation. And Mr. Burrows referred to getting the information. Well, he had the opportunity when I presented the concern and brought forward the concern of my neighbors to ask questions for clarification as to what in fact this situation involved. But we've seen no enforcement either prior to or subsequent to my bringing the issue forward. So it is an issue of enforcement, but enforcing what? Certainly the community standards bylaw is clear in terms of the noise or concerns that are brought forward by neighboring individuals.
We seem to be getting
and if we
off
ignore
topic
those
again.
rights,
that's
a serious matter
at the moment, and we're supposed to be talking to the motion to postpone. The meeting guidelines are clear. So do you want to postpone this? Are you speaking for the motion to postpone or against?
I'm speaking against postponement because it's an urgent matter.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion to postpone? I don't see any hands up. I'm gonna call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor?
Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Kush.
In favor?
Councillor Klein.
Favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor?
Councillor Govinlock.
I certainly do not want to postpone any action on this matter.
And I vote in favor. All right, that brings us on to vaccine passports. Sorry, Mr. Frank, you have your hand up and you have for the last little while. So is that you wish to speak on the vaccine passport? Do you have anything legally to leave this off?
Sorry, Your Worship. No, I just had my hand up.
Okay, so I guess we're having a discussion about vaccine passports. I really don't have a lot of background on this at the moment. So Councillor Govinlock, you raised the issue. Go ahead.
Well, I think there was a motion that requested a legal opinion on the authority of a municipality as an employer there to get a legal opinion regarding the authority to implement vaccine passports as one tool to minimize the growth or spread of the COVID-19 passports. And of course, the discussion arose out of the lack of protections that were put in place in the council chambers as opposed to the protections that are available upstairs to protect staff. And it is a legal requirement for an employer, which Woodlands County is, to protect its staff and individuals on its property for their safety and health. And so the question was put forward to look at the legal expectations or the enforceability of it. And unfortunately, administration didn't take it seriously. And so we're in limbo with regards to the legal, but we're not in limbo with regards to my observations of the spread of COVID-19 and the problem the province of Alberta is in regarding controlling the spread of COVID-19. So again, it's a timely subject that requires serious conversation in terms of the changes our council chamber needs to have to protect not only the staff, but the public who are on our property as a result of it. It's not about mandatory vaccines. It's a question about the legal options that the county should be considering to put in place in those council chambers. And I know in adjacent municipalities, plexiglass was put in place. It was put in place upstairs. The disappointment I have is the failure of administration to put the safeguards in place in those council chambers to protect not only staff, but the public.
Okay, so I'm just because there was a motion made on that, and I think there's been some allegations against administration on this one, but I'm going to read the motion out of the minutes, which is quoted directly off the recorded portion of the meeting. That council directs administration to get a legal opinion with regards to the requirement to verify vaccination for individuals entering council chambers. So that's what the motion was. Let's be clear. Councillor Kush.
Just for clarification, as far as safety of the employees and councillors and whatnot, to Mr. Frank, has the county as an employer been following the AHS and OHS guidelines that have been set out to ensure that we stay, I guess, current within what's the expectations for safety protocols?
Mr. Frank?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Kush, yes, we follow all Alberta health public regulations.
Thank you. Councillor Klein.
Thank you for that, David Gord. And I know administration and council, we don't have a choice. When AHS lays down the rules, and these are procedures that must take place, we don't have a choice to pick and choose. You know, and it frustrates the hell out of me. I know there's individuals not within this area, but in the province right now running for council to say basically, and they're out there saying, well, when I get there, to hell with the province, who the hell do they think they are? When you take the oath of office, you must follow the rules of the province as laid out. You have a legal obligation to do that. I'm pretty sure we are, and I'll guarantee Gord is doing what he has to when the information is there. We had a little time there. I remember during our last meeting, there was quite a discussion because somebody who's supposed to be telling us what we should do, and his senior managers were missing in action. They're back now. I haven't heard anything from them lately, and it frustrates the hell out of me in my community that the people who are supposed to be giving direction aren't there when we need them.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Klein. Councillor Governor.
Well, it frustrates the hell out of me as well, Dale, that administration tells you one thing and does something different. Because if we're following the Alberta Health and Province of Alberta regulations, could he explain to me why plexiglass was put in place as a barrier between staff and the public in the upstairs chambers, and no changes, no physical changes were put in place in the council chambers, other than putting in cameras and microphones? But in terms of COVID-19 safety protocols, when we returned to in-person council meetings a month and a half ago, there were no safety protocols being respected or expected or enforced. There was no social distancing. Council people were put 2 feet apart instead of the 6 foot apart. No requirement for masks. There was some alcohol-based hand sanitizer available at the front door, and that was it. So why did we put plexiglass in place upstairs and we couldn't put it in place downstairs?
Okay, so just to be clear, this is now no longer about that council direct administration to get a legal opinion with regards to the requirements to verify vaccines for individuals entering council chambers, but it's about plexiglass from administration. So I'll let Mr. Frank answer the question on the plexiglass.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Governlock, and maybe I need to remind him of the history of COVID. When the COVID happened in March of 2020, there were a number of regulations that were put in place that council was made aware of, in which we followed those protocols in accordance with the Alberta Health regulations. At that time, council then made the decision to move to electronic means that prevented council entering into the council chambers. Not until July of this year, when the province removed all restrictions, did council re-enter into the council chambers. At that point in time, there were no restrictions in regards to that matter, and we followed those that. So, and as a result of the new restriction, council has now gone back onto electronic meeting format. So therefore, administration has adhered to all the requirements that are made necessary under the Alberta Health regulations.
Thanks, Mr. Frank. Do you have any further discussion on this? Councillor Cush, you have your hand up.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone the rest of this conversation until we get the legal opinion back at our next meeting.
Okay, motion on the floor from Councillor Cush to postpone the rest of the discussion until we get a legal opinion from admin. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion to postpone? Councillor Governlock, I see your hand is up.
I have no problem postponing the decision on this subject matter until a later date. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak to the motion postpone? All right, I see no other hands, so uh, I will speak to the motion to postpone on this, just in the fact that when we seek legal opinions, there is a cost that gets attached with this. At the moment, the province is in charge of health. It's Alberta Health, not Woodlands County Health. There are restrictions that are already being pretty severely imposed by the province right now that we are, as Councillor Klein pointed out, required to follow. And part of the problem with legislation or making rules like this is that we're starting to get into some very tricky territory, both with regard to the Privacy Act and in respect of the rights and freedoms, and whether or not we're even mandating something that's within our authority to do. And even if we decide to go ahead and mandate something like this, we would have to defend it. Most likely, we would have to defend it in court. And I just want to make sure that council understands that if you're going to put a rule in place, that means you're going to have to enforce it. And you run the risk of exposing the municipality to some pretty serious legal issues. With that, I'll, okay, and I see two other hands up here. Councillor Prestige?
Yes, how much has the lawyer done on this to get a legal opinion, and how much is it gonna cost?
Councillor Prestige, we're just dealing with the motion to postpone. Councillor
Yes, but
McQueen? Councillor McQueen? Councillor McQueen, you're still muted.
Sorry, John. I was just going to say, I think in light of the way the changes are coming right now, and we're meeting virtually and everything else, I really wonder what's going to happen here in the next month or two. We're not going to be meeting down in those chambers. Who knows? Who knows where this is going to end up and where it's going to go? And I agree with you 100%. And I think that our delegation had some valid points this morning too, whether or not are we stepping our bounds by doing this. I know I clearly said when we had this discussion, I didn't care if you were vaccinated or not. All I was concerned about was the safety of the people coming into that room downstairs. And that was the biggest thing. I thought, as long as we got the masks, as long as we got the sanitizer there, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And I really think this legal opinion thing is, well, it'll tell us where we stand and everything else, but I think it's going to come right down to exactly what you said. It's the province is laying it out, and that's where it's at. And if we wanted to change it, I don't even want to start going there. I don't want to start with that kind of thing. So I'd speak in favor of this postponing.
Okay. Councillor Klein. Councillor Klein, you're muted. There you go.
Mayor Rosen, it's one of those where you wish it would just go away. As Councillor McQueen had just said, the rules keep changing. I'm pretty sure, as I said before, administration was following the rules of the law as laid out by AHS. Then they're going to change again. I don't know why we need a legal opinion to tell us we must follow the provincial rules.
Okay, Councillor Govenlock. I see your hand.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that you would try to create the paranoia in the public by talking out of both sides of your mouth, John. You can't pretend on one hand we need a legal opinion for the gun law and how important that is, and then say we don't need a legal opinion with regards to the requirements to protect staff and whether we have the legal authority to implement something like a vaccine passport. I don't have the expertise either to call or provide the answers, but the intent was to provide counsel with the background information to make intelligent, informed decisions. there. So getting a legal opinion was what I asked for, and that happened over a month ago. Obviously, administration didn't take it seriously there. So it's a matter of what steps we're going to move to not only protect staff as a legal requirement, as well as the public. And so unfortunately, we are going to have to postpone this discussion.
So I'm going to just make a point of clarification. When you talk about whether or not we were trying to give options and things like that to administration, the motion that was made at the council chambers is, and I'm going to read it again because I've got it right in front of me, that council direct administration to get a legal opinion with regards to requirements to verify vaccination for individuals entering council chambers. You want to get people upset? That's the motion to put down. I'm really done with this issue. Is there anyone else wants to speak to the motion to postpone? And if not, I'll call the
Mayor
question.
Burris,
Councillor Prestige.
I'm agree to postpone if all we talk about is what is in the motion, not drag all this other stuff in that Councillor Govenlock is doing. If we postpone it, we only speak on the legal opinion that was in the motion.
Yes, that is my understanding as to what would happen.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I'm going to call the question for the motion to postpone. Councillor Rennie?
In favor?
Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
Councillor Cush?
In favor.
Councillor Klein?
Favor?
Councillor McQueen?
In favor.
Councillor Govenlock?
I have no choice. We're in favor of postponing until the next meeting when that legal opinion should be available.
And I vote in favor. So that item is passed. So we are off on to item 8.1. Let's see if we can get a few things out of the way here. Item 8.1, Air Show Society Community Initiatives Program. So we're getting an update on that. And I don't have the thing in front of me here. Who's taking us through that one, Mr. Frank? Oh, there you go, Bert. Hey, Bert, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I have in front of you an item today. It's just an update coming from the August 17, 2021 council meeting, where council had agreed to provide a support letter to the Whitecourt Air Show Society for an air show to be planned in 2022. We have been informed by the society that due to the ongoing economic recovery, they will not be able to bring that show forward in 2022, although we do hope to hear from them for the possibility of a show in 2023. And the recommendation on the item is just to accept the update on the support letter as information.
Okay, thanks very much, Bert. Just to admin, do we need well, sorry, let's ask some questions here. Councillor Klein, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Burrows. I was going to make a motion to accept the Whitecourt Air Show Society Community Initiative support letter request of update as information.
Perfect. Thank you. Motion on the floor from Councillor Klein. Any discussion on that motion? I don't see any. I'm going to go ahead and call the question as soon as I can find my list. Councillor Rennie.
In favor?
Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Cush.
In favor.
Councillor Klein.
In favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor.
Councillor Govenlock.
Favor.
And I'm in favor. So that brings us on to the surplus grader disposal. What I'm going to do is we'll get prep for that one. I just need I need to ask for a 5-minute break if I could. And actually, you know what? Let's make it a 10-minute break for everybody, and then we should be able to finish off the rest of this agenda. So let's just take a 10-minute break. That'll bring us back at 1:07. Right up here. Okay, everybody. Just do a quick roll to make sure everybody came back. Councillor Rennie. Councillor Rennie, are you there? Okay, Mr. Frank, can you hear me?
Yes.
Did I say 107 or 105?
107.
Okay, sorry. We'll take 2 more minutes. Okay, now we're at 107. So let's try and see if we've got everybody back. Councillor Rennie.
I'm here.
Perfect. Councillor Prestige. Councillor Prestige. Okay, I'll come back to him. Councillor.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, thanks, Councillor Prestige. Councillor Cush.
Here.
Councillor Klein.
Didn't go anywhere, so I'm still here.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Klein. Councillor McQueen.
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. Councillor Govenlock.
Oh, good to go, Your Worship.
Okay. And I'm here. So, Mr. Frank, sorry, Shannon, are we streaming still? We're good to go?
Mayor Burrows and council, yes, we are still streaming.
Okay, very good. So that's going to bring us to our item 8.2, which is our surplus grader disposal. And that is going to be, is that Andre? Yes, Andre.
Your Worship, members of council, as a result of restructuring the organization, the grader fleet operating was reduced from 7 graders to 5 graders. For the last year and a half, we've had 2 spare graders parked, which has allowed some flexibility when units required some maintenance. However, given that the existing grader fleet is now 6 years old, with the hourly use being between 7,600 and 9,800 hours, the fleet is due to be replaced. The 2022 capital budget will identify the replacement of 2 grader units estimated at approximately $900,000. Administration is proposing that 2 graders with the highest hours, 9,800 hours and 9,300 hours, be declared surplus and disposed of in the next Edmonton Ritchie Brothers auction scheduled for October 26th. Due to a number of factors, including supply and demand, the price of used equipment is at a high right now. Indications are that the October auction is the auction to send graders to. given that winter operation contracts are out and contractors are looking for graders. Waiting some more time. Once those graders cross 10,000 hours and get 7 years old, the value of them decreases significantly once they cross 10,000 hours. So estimates are, depending on the auction, the bidders, the units could go between 125,000 to 200,000. So administration is proposing that the two oldest be declared surplus. It does have the potential to reduce our flexibility should units go down. However, we will have to operate a little smarter, maybe putting some plow trucks out on gravel roads, a matter of changing the shoes out on the plows. But given that a possible 200,000, or sorry, 400,000 in graders is sitting there, not getting a lot of use, and the hours are getting up there, they're going to be a year older. Recommendation is that the 2 units be sent to the October 26th Ritchie Brothers auction in Nisku. It's also recommended that the funds received from the sale of the 2 units be identified for the Public Works Equipment Reserve, which will be recommended to use in 2022 for the purchase of 2 graders as the start of replacing the grader fleet. Recommendations that Woodlands County Council declare graders units G155 and G157 as surplus and instruct administration to arrange to have the units placed in the October 26, 2021 Ritchie Brothers auction in Nisku, and that Woodlands County Council identified that the funds received from the sale of G155 and G157 be placed in the Public Works Equipment Reserve.
Okay, thank you, Andre. I'm going to, Bruce, you've had your mic open for quite some time, and then I'm going to go with Dale. Sorry, Councillor Klein.
The funds we get from the graders are going to go in a Public Work Equipment Reserve. Can we say specifically that that funds go to replacing the next graders, so it doesn't get used for something else?
Through the chair to Councillor Prestige, if the funds go into the Public Works Equipment Reserve, those funds will be for purchasing equipment, nothing else. If council decides that replacing graders in 2022 is approved, then the funds will come from the reserve. And if not, the funds may be used to purchase other pieces of equipment. However, that would be council's decision. CEO Gordon Frank may have a comment on that question.
Mr. Frank?
Your worship, through to Councillor Prestige, is I understand the question. You're restricting your ability to use those funds specifically then. Therefore, the recommendation from administration is to put it into the equipment reserve. And once you know what your 2022 budget is, including all capital items, then you have more flexibility in the event that you want to purchase additional equipment or other equipment.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Prestige?
Not really. Can we put it in a specific reserve in the public funds or in the Public Works Equipment Reserve for graders? Because if we don't buy them next year and we do it in the year after, and we use it to buy a gravel truck or something like that, then we don't have the funds to do the graders, which what it was intended for.
Okay, we'll discuss that a little bit further on here with, as we go through this. Oh, Mr. Frank, you got your hand up. Go ahead. You want to respond to that?
Yeah. There's nothing stopping council from specifically making the motion to have the funds allocated specifically for the replacement of graders. So this, for example, if the amount is 400,000 and the new graders are, Andre, what's a new grader worth?
For 450 ballpark.
Yeah. So if you can buy a grader, so you're gonna have to have an additional funds from somewhere, right? So, I mean, there's nothing preventing you from making that motion. We're recommending that you should have more flexibility. And it isn't our intent from administration to use equipment reserve money for capital items other than equipment.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to Councillor Klein.
Yeah, just a simple question for Andre. I take it when these graders go, the equipment that normally goes with them, and I'm meaning the front blade and wings will also be going?
Through the chair to Councillor Klein, yes, it'll be the grader plus all the attachments to those two units will go.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to make a motion that Woodlands Council declare grader units G155 and G157 as surplus and instruct administration to arrange to have the units placed in the October 26, 2021 Ritchie Brothers auction in Nisku, and Woodlands County Council identify the funds received from the sale of G155 and G157 be placed in Public Works equipment reserve for grader replacement.
Okay, motion on the floor from Councillor Klein. Any discussion on that motion? I don't see anybody's hand up, so I'm gonna go ahead and call the question. Councillor Rennie?
In favor?
Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
Councillor Cush?
In favor.
Councillor Klein?
Favor?
Councillor McQueen?
In favor?
Councillor Govenlock?
In favor.
And I'm in favor, so that is passed. All right, that brings us to a financial update for August 31st, 2021. Alicia, where are you? There you are.
Thank you, Mayor Burrows, and good morning, members of council. Distributed with the council package was the financial report to August 31st, 2021. You would have noted during reading that I put notes underneath the revenues and the expense section to provide council with some additional input as to some of the variances that are still noted at this point in time during our operating year. I'd also like to just draw to your attention on the midway section of page 75 of 110, so right at the start of the expense area, you'll note that the general administration is showing a variance or being over budget by $20,000, and that was in direct relationship to the amount of usage that the tax incentive plan used this year. But I would like to point out that year to date, we have generated $16,000 in interest on monies that are in the bank account. So that over budget is going to be rectified through interest earned. Administration is also very optimistic that we will end the year at December 31st with the physical ability to transfer our budgeted $1 million transfer to reserves to that fund. And we're also wanting to optimistically state that we will be able to add another 1.5 million physical cash transferred to reserves by year end of 1.5 million, and that is direct relationship to the provincial education requisition credit, or the PERC applications that we applied for during 2020 and early in 2021 for the tax accounts that we had to write off. So if council recalls, that was our ability to claim back through the province the education portion of the taxes that we had to pay, even though we remained with those accounts outstanding on our ledgers. So optimistic that we're going to have a very strong showing at the end of the year. Also, just to let council know that as of today, for all years owing, there's currently $5 million of taxes owed to Woodlands County. Now, some of those monies are in the process of being collected through tax agreements that council initiated or entered into with some ratepayers during the year. There was also some legal requirements. We were awarded monies from the sale of some assets of one of the larger companies. So still some good news there. I'm happy to report that the companies we made the tax payment agreements with are all in good standing. They're making the payments as promised and as we expect to receive them, and we have developed some very good rapport between their financial people and ours. So in my opinion, some good headway is being made in that regard. Of the 5 million, 3.3 of that is for current year taxes only, so just for the 2021 year end. Of that 3.3, approximately 250,000 will be collected through the monthly tax payment program. That's separate from the other agreements that I just spoke about. So just a final number is of the total taxable properties in Woodlands County, there is currently 11.67% outstanding.
Okay.
So any questions?
Thanks, Alicia. Any questions? Councillor Klein?
Thanks, Alicia. It sounds like things going forward are looking a heck of a lot better than years past. So things are looking better. My only question would be, and it's one of those that's usually outstanding quite often, and that's the monies owed to us by the province. It seems like in the last little while we're waiting and waiting and waiting, sometimes a year or two. How much outstanding are we waiting for from the province right now?
We are waiting for, I'm sorry, through the chair to Councillor Klein, we are waiting for approximately $2.5 million. Much of that is current year. We anticipate receiving that before the end of the year. We, as in the county, have also dedicated an individual to be more vigilant on our grant reporting. So we're making great strides in that and catching up on some files that had been started in prior years and not closed properly. So again, just as our relationships with a lot of our taxation clients, we are seeing much improved communication with the various grant divisions, and we're looking forward to not having these lingering items.
Good. Thank you, Alicia.
Okay. Any other questions to Alicia? I don't see any. So with that, I will say, Alicia, it is so nice to hear some good news, and I'm glad that people were able to take advantage of that tax incentive plan that we had. It was a little overused, like you said, but we're making it up in interest, and yeah, just fantastic. I'm really happy to see that we're moving in a positive direction here. So that's great. Would anyone like to? Oh, sorry, I see a hand up.
Mayor Burrs.
Councillor. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Prestige.
I was going to say, good job, Alicia. And with that, I'll make a motion to accept the report for information.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Prestige. Motion to accept the financial update for information. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, I don't see any hands up or mics open, so I'm going to go ahead and call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor?
Councillor Prestige,
In favor.
Councillor Kush,
In favor.
Councillor Klein,
In favor.
Councillor McQueen,
In favor.
Councillor Govenlock,
Favor?
and I vote in favor. So again, and I think everybody's probably thinking the same thing, but I know you're one of the last people to leave the office. Every time I'm here, I'll see your car out front, and you're again one of the last people to leave the office. So thank you very much for the dedication that you've shown, and it is looking like it's paying off. So thank you.
You're welcome, but it
Okay.
is a team effort.
Well, I know it is. So to your department and administration, and I don't think administration gets enough credit for the situation that we're in right now, and the amount of change and things, the rapid change that's coming at us. I think we're doing quite well. Okay, with that, we'll move on to that financial update is passed. Item 8.4. So there's a cost of living on county staff. And are you going to take us through that one?
That would be mine as well, Mayor Burrows.
Okay, second, I've got a hand up from Councillor Rennie, so I'm going to address Councillor Rennie. Go ahead and.
We'll let Alicia take us through it first, and then I'd like to speak on behalf of the committee that took a look at this.
Okay, perfect. I was going to ask for the committee to speak after Alicia as well, and before we got into it. So we'll take it from there. Alicia, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Burrows, Council. Earlier in the summer, the HR committee reached out to administration requesting an opportunity to meet and discuss a couple items, personnel in nature. The committee did meet earlier in September, and through discussions and sharing of information, the HR committee requested that administration come up with more than one option for council to consider moving forward on this. So we have before you is three options. Option one will have an amount of administrative time that would go into it, because in order to do retro, we do have to go back and open up all our prior remittances, as was noted in some of the explanation. Option two is more of a forward-looking cost of living adjustment, and it provides an opportunity for new council to have an opportunity to work as the committee and discuss staff's wages moving forward. And then option three was a bit of a hybrid of both options one and two. It provides a little bit of financial money in people's pockets right away, plus the longevity of the increase moving forward. So I want to thank the HR committee for their time, and sometimes working electronically has got its own challenges, but I thank you all very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. With that, I'm going to recognize Councillor Rennie, who is part of that committee. So Councillor Rennie, the floor is yours, and then we'll deal with any questions.
Thank you. I guess there is a fourth option, is that the council does nothing. So I hope that's not an option that's going to be considered today. Of the three different options that are presented, all three of them I think will be beneficial to keep us competitive in the market and competitive with what we're seeing happen with private industry in the area. Benefits are still going on despite all the world's upside downness that it has right now. The option I'd like to give a nod towards is option number two. And there's a few reasons for it. Option number two has a lot less administrative work than option number one. And option number two doesn't have the perhaps appearance of this being a bonus that option number three might look like. So that being said, I think option two accomplishes our goal of the HR committee. And at this point, we'll open it up for questions through Mayor Burrows. And if there aren't any, I'd like to make a motion that we would proceed with option number two after the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rennie. Any discussion or any questions to either the committee or Alicia on this? Nothing. Okay, I will make one little, I remember when we were talking about that, going through COVID and some of these things that we were dealing with. And I was speaking to one of the reporters, excuse me, and I used the phrase that the staff was feeling the pain or something along those lines. And I actually withdrew that, and I wanted to say that they were sharing as part of the solution in that 10% reduction through COVID that we were seeing. Our staff's been through a lot in the last 2 years with COVID, and the sacrifices that have been made, and I want to just take the opportunity to thank staff for what they've done. So with that, I'll ask for any further questions. And if not, I'm going to open the floor again to Councillor. Okay, I see Councillor Prestige, you've got your mic open. Go ahead.
Yes, when we were deciding this, I spoke to a couple of the big employers in the county here, and they all did cost of living through the pandemic. And so I see no reason we should do this, and I agree with Jim on option 2. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rennie. Councillor Cush.
I'd like to make the motion that the county approve a 3% adjustment to all staff effective September 27th, 2021, with a review of the wage and salary ranges to not come before new council until April 2022. Cost of this option from September 7th, 2021 to approximately May 14th, 2022, $73,431. The same benefit cost will still be paid to the provider, but money is on a go-forward basis and not paying for historical premiums. New council will then have the opportunity to review the wages and benefits in April when tax rates are being set.
Okay, and that's option 2.
Option 2.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor from Councillor Cush. Any discussion on that motion? I see none except for Councillor Cush's hand up, but I think he left it up. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see any discussion, so with that, I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie.
I'm going to vote in favor, and I just wanted to thank Bruce and Dave for having a quick response on some scheduled dates to make that committee get together.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rennie. Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Slow motion in favor. We got in favor for Councillor Prestige. Councillor Cush.
In favor.
In favor. Councillor Klein.
In favor, and thank you, John, for your comments with staff. They've gone through a lot of BS there again from people above us in the last little while. So thank you for that.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Klein. Councillor McQueen.
In favor.
Councillor Govinlaw.
In favor.
And I vote in favor. So that item is passed. Now, this is going to bring us on to item 8.5, policy review. And who is taking us through that? Is that Mr. Frank? Yes, Mr. Frank.
Your worship, members of council, administration has been reviewing the policies, of which 4 are in front of you in regards to the matter for council consideration. And we're asking council rescind policy 3101, which is the cattle gate underpasses, policy 3224 as the storage of power poles and pipeline material, and as well as 101 committee of council and 103 council communication services. The last 2 have been interwoven with other policies.
Okay, any questions to administration on this? Councillor Klein.
Thanks, Member Rose. Gord, just a quick question regarding the cattle underpass. So I'm thinking if a request ever came forward in the future, would we would council consider it, or are we just gonna say we're not doing those anymore?
Well, and again, council can always consider any request from any individual that requires a underpass. Typically, it's the costs associated that would be council's consideration. However, I don't believe we're doing a lot of them, you know. And again, in the last 20 years, I don't believe that if any have been done. So therefore, if that special request did come in, then council can still consider.
Okay, thank you, Gord.
Okay, any other questions to admin on this one? You want to go with the recommended action to rescind the policies? Councillor McQueen.
Mayor Burrows, I'll make a motion that council rescind policies 3101, cattle underpasses, 3224, storage of power poles and pipeline materials, 1001, committees of council, and 1003, council communication services.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. Okay, motion on the floor from Councillor McQueen. Any discussion on that motion? I see no hands or microphones, so I'm going to go ahead and call the question. Councillor Rennie?
In favor?
Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
Councillor Cush?
In favor?
Councillor Klein?
In favor?
Councillor McQueen?
In favor?
Councillor Govenlock?
In favor?
I vote in favor, so that item is passed. On the policy review, that takes us to another page in my agenda here. Health and Wellness Program. So this is item 8.6. This is going to be Alicia.
Thank you, Mayor Burrows. Council, this policy 1972, the Health and Wellness Program, is before council today, and administration is just looking for your direction to allow us to look into other options for administering the Health and Wellness Program. Any changes that we would like to make will come back to council for further review. This item is before you simply because we have heard from staff that the policy as written is possibly not meeting the needs of the users of the program right now. And there's also a bit of a privacy concern as sometimes people want to use the monies available to them through their health and wellness to potentially pay for items that they claim through the extended medical that were not covered. But to open themselves up to have someone, a staff member within the organization, seeing exactly what they're claiming for, sometimes doesn't set well with people. So we're just wanting to open this up, look and see what other options are out there, be a little progressive and make sure that the policy meets the needs of our employees the best way that it can.
Okay, Councillor Klein, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Burrows, and thanks, Alicia. This is something I've been told by a number of staff over the last few years that we need to relook at this, and it was concerns, as Alicia's already said, something that's not in to be shared with other staff. It needs to be hands-free and more open to things that the staff may need. Timing wise, perfect time to do it right now. I'll make a motion that the council direct administration to look at viable options for administering the health and wellness program. That passed through, we need to get on with this.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Klein. So motion on the floor from Councillor Klein. Any discussion on that motion? I don't see any hands or microphones, so I will call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor?
Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Cush.
In favor?
Councillor Klein.
Favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor?
Councillor Govenlock.
In favor?
And I vote in favor, so that item's passed. So 2021 organizational meeting date and time. That is Mr. Frank.
Yes, your worship, members of council, the recommendation, because the next regularly scheduled meeting, or the second meeting of the month of October, follows the day after the municipal election. We're requesting that it be moved to the following week, as well as on your schedule, it does say October 26, 2020. That should read 2021. So we're asking that council move the organizational meeting till October 26, 2021.
Okay. All right. So there's you want two motions for this, right? That one
That's
cancel,
correct.
the council meeting gets canceled, and that they move the org meeting to October 26, 2020. Just clarification.
Oh,
Okay.
that's correct.
Any discussion, Councillor Kush?
I think it should be a quick one. So I make the motion the council schedule the annual organizational meeting for October 26, 2020 at the municipal office in Whitecourt, commencing at 9:30 a.m.
Perfect. Okay, motion on the floor from Councillor Kush. Any discussion?
Excuse me, Mayor Burrows
Seeing
and
none.
council, I just want to point out that it should say 2021, and I believe Councillor Kush said 2020.
Oops.
October 26, 2021.
Okay, we got that straight now? Yeah, it does say 2020 on there. Okay. Motion on the floor from Councillor Kush. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor?
Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Kush.
In favor.
Councillor Klein.
Favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor?
Councillor Govenlog.
Favor.
And I'm in favor, so that is passed. That brings us to the funding request for Christmas display.
Second part.
Oh, you got a
Oh,
second
I'm sorry.
No, we got,
No, I got to do the second part of the motion here. I'm getting ahead of myself. My apologies.
Mayor Burrows.
Yes, go ahead. Councillor
I'll
Prestige.
make a motion that council cancels the October 19th, 2021 regular council meeting.
Okay. Motion on the floor from Councillor Prestige. Any discussion on that motion? I see no mics or hands. I'll go ahead and call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor?
Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Kush.
In favor.
Councillor Klein.
Favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor?
Councillor Govenlog.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. Okay, that one's done. Now we're on to the funding request for the Christmas display. So who's going to take us through this? Alicia.
Sorry, you caught me off guard there. I thought that was Mr.
Well,
Frank. My apologies.
We're smoking like a house on fire now. We're moving forward.
So we as an administration received a request for support from one of our residents who generally provides an opportunity for a little bit of Christmas fun and festivity through outdoor sleigh ride and some refreshments. And they are this year looking for support from Woodlands County. And the administration has reviewed this with our community services folks, and they did indicate to us that because our programming has been not well utilized during this last year, that they felt there was money available within the budget to support this request, and it is now before council for decision on that.
Okay, thanks very much, Alicia. Any questions to Alicia on this item? Nobody wants to be the Grinch? Okay, I'll be the Grinch. The question that I have is there any policy guiding us around this type of thing? Like if we get other funding requests for along these lines under the community services guidelines or whatever is, I just want to know how much precedent we're setting and if we have anything guiding us.
Through the chair, through to Mayor Burrows and the rest of council. I guess whenever you do get these types of requests, you do run that risk. Now, council has in the past has made grants to various organizations. I realize this is an individual, not necessarily a registered society or organization. As far as a policy, one did not come up in any of the discussions that we had with the community services folks, but I would stand corrected if Mr. Frank is aware of a policy that we did not uncover during his vacation.
Councillor Rennie might have something hiding in his back pocket here. Go ahead, Councillor Rennie.
I think this is very similar to a block party in that it's, it's a community celebration. It's a little different in that it's spread over perhaps like a week or 2 weeks instead of by the one individual date. And it also might be spread out to people that live outside of the direct area. But I can see this being very similar to the block party concept. And for that reason, I'd support it. And perhaps look into the future as to enhancing the block party so it could become something even better than it is right now.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rennie. Yeah, it's funny you bring up the block party idea because I was kind of thinking the same thing. But Councillor Govenlock, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I'm going to put forward a motion that council provide Wendy on $1,000 for a 2021 Christmas light display to cover the cost of horse drawn wagon and incidentals. Woodlands County is recognized in any event advertising.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Govenlock. So motion on the floor from Councillor Govenlock. Any discussion on that motion? I see no hands, no microphones. I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor?
Councillor Prestich.
In favor.
Councillor Prest. There you go. Councillor Cush.
In favor.
Councillor Klein.
In favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor.
Councillor Govenlock.
Favor.
I'm in favor. So that item is carried. All right, we got item 8.9. Town of Mayerthorpe letter of support for the West End bus. That is Mr. Frank.
Your worship, members of council, the West End Bus Committee is applying for a rural transportation solution fund in which they would build a multifaceted project, including vehicle maintenance facility, some bus shelters and a hybrid minivan, chairlift, and expand some of the program with the electric charging stations. So they're asking for a letter of support in principle to apply for the grant. I should say for the project.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Frank. That'll bring us to any questions to admin on this one. I'll ask one. The letter of support, does it come with any financial obligations? And I guess the only reason that I'm bringing that up is because it seems like a certain entity that we do any joint applications with seems to attach a financial liability that goes along with it. So I just want to get that out right now.
Your worship, members of council, to Mayor Burrows, the funding level for the municipality is 80%, with 20% being matched with the grant in regards to that. They're seeking up to $50,000 for this, And as a result, and Councillor Cush and Councillor Prestige, I believe, are the two members on this committee. Can probably speak a little further in regards to that amount, but we did sign an agreement that allowed the committee a 5-year operating commitment for that. So all those funds would come within that agreement.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cush, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just at the meeting clarified with the construction for buses, minivans and stuff, what we're looking at is possibly a project, because it's only $50,000 that the grant is. When we were talking about possible funding and stuff at the time, we said it just depends on if the grant comes through and where it kind of goes from there, but currently it wasn't, there was no financial talk at that point as far as projects or what we're gonna do. They have a few ideas for stuff that would better the program, and they're trying to get the application in before the deadline to see if they can qualify for some of the provincial money.
Okay, very good. Any other, Councillor Klein, go ahead.
Just a question back to Councillor Cush then. This is the first time I've seen this information regarding this possible funding. And the reason I want to know if maybe he could tell me what the deadline is. I find it interesting. Just that I sit on the Hillcrest board, and our last meeting we made a motion to purchase a new bus. The one we have is old and needs to be replaced. We're building a new garage for it. I didn't know this funding was out there. The funding that we're using to pay for the bus comes from a senior that used to live within my area. And when he passed away, he designated a large sum of money to replace this vehicle. We now are in the process of replacing it. It would be nice to maybe add to it with some extra funding. So if you have any more information on this, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, to Councillor Klein, the deadline's October 8th, 2021. And I believe in the package here, it has there is a link there on the first page of the RFD that actually shows I guess the guidelines and stuff for the grant.
Okay, good. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, does anyone want to make the motion to go ahead with a letter of support? Oops. Councillor Klein. Councillor Klein, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I get carried away once in a while. I'll make a motion that council approves a letter of support in principle to the town of Marythorpe for the West End Bus Rural Transit Enhancement Project.
Okay, excellent. So motion on the floor from Councillor Klein. Any discussion on that motion? Nothing. Okay. I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie.
In favor?
Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Cush.
In favor.
Councillor Klein.
In favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor.
Councillor Govenlock.
Favor?
And I'm in favor, so that item is passed. And this is a very important one. I've been getting a lot of calls on this one. I know people wanted to know exactly what was going to go on here, and I'm glad to see this one in front of council. So who is going to take us through this, because my screen is not loading the RFD? Dawn.
Yes. Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. So in front of you, you have the recommendation on behalf of the Ag Service Board to declare an agriculture disaster in Woodlands County. This was discussed at the Agriculture Service Board meeting on September 17th, at which time the Ag Service Board felt that it would be prudent at this time to declare an agricultural disaster. I do have some supporting documentation there as well in your package. The guide to declaring municipal disaster through the RMA, the evaluation tool, which I filled out, or we filled out, based on what we felt were the conditions in the municipality. And that's on page 116 in your package. So the main reason that the board felt that it was prudent at this time to declare an ag disaster is we have our crops, while they are coming off in good quality, the yields are much reduced, and being that they're shorter crops, there's not going to be a lot of straw available for the livestock industry as well. Further to that, our forage crops are not doing well. We haven't had a really good hay crop this year. We're seeing below 50% yields on the hay crops. So our producers, our livestock producers, are going to be facing feed shortages. And additionally, we have our pasture conditions are not doing well. They're not recovering, so there isn't going to be as much feed available, fresh feed available for the livestock. So we're going to have to start feeding earlier due to that as well. And so this all stems from our summer, and everybody was here in the summer, so you know we had extremely hot, dry conditions through the summer, and that's led to the crop conditions that we have now. So further to that, there is also a letter to the minister in your package on page 120. And I just want to point out there's a little bit of a typo at the bottom of the page. I have in the CCs going to different people. I had the Council of Westlaw County. It won't just go to the Westlaw County Council. It will also go to the Provincial Ag Service Boards. So with that, I'll, I guess, open up for comments if any of the council members wish to add anything.
There's Dale McQueen. He's first on the draw. Go ahead, Councillor McQueen.
Thanks, Mayor Burrows. I think Don pretty well summed up everything that was discussed the other day. And I think we hung on to this for a while, looking at it, hoping that we'd see some rain this summer, or maybe bring on our second cut and maybe bring on our pastures. And we kicked it around. Basically, I don't know if it'll do anything except shed light on to the situation to the province and the federal government, saying, you know, we're in trouble here, boys. And they know that. Everybody knows it now. I'd like to point out that we're under a certain area where there's a tax deferral for the cattle this fall for some of the farmers. So we're right on the edge of that. We were there before we declared this disaster, so we're good that way too. But we have no other choice. And you know, there was producers asking what's going to happen. I said, well, you won't probably see anything from the province or the feds. We declare it, but that's that. And except it brings light to our situation, and maybe down the road, maybe there'll be something more. But most of the time, they just tell us there's programs out there to take care of that, and you have a choice whether or not you want to use those programs. So, but anyway, it's a done deal, and I think maybe if this brings a little bit of hope to some of our producers, we'll see what happens with it. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McQueen. Councillor Klein.
Thanks, Mayor Burrows. And for the cow-calf guys, it's only getting worse. For those of you that don't follow the markets, with the price of grain right now, I was told somewhere between $8 and $9 a bushel for barley. Feed wheat right now, my neighbors just sold a big bin full at just over $10 a bushel. For those that haven't been following the cow market, we've got a number, and I'm going to say a large number of producers right now selling their calves off 1 to 2 to 3 months early than normal. I'm watching every Thursday calves going through the auction mart that normally would be selling in that 5 to 6 to 700 pound range. These baby calves are going in at 250 to 300 pounds. They're getting a big price for it, but the return back to the producers next to nothing. Just last week, I had a discussion with the guys at the auction mart. The feedlots now basically said, we're done. We'll be buying some. They're virtually full. They have to allow these little baby calves to grow up, so they're full to capacity. The price of calves is going down, so that only adds to the problem. It's not going to get any better for our cow calf guys. I hate to think what it's going to do for some of the older guys. It's just sad right now.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Klein. Did you want to go ahead and make the motion, or?
Yeah, with that, I don't think we can say anything else. I'll make a motion the council declares the state of agricultural disaster for the 2021 farming season.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Klein. Motion on the floor from Councillor Klein. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, I see none. I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie?
In favor?
Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
Councillor Kush?
In favor.
Councillor Klein?
In favor.
Councillor McQueen?
In favor.
Councillor Govan-Locke?
In favor.
And I'm in favor as well, so that item is passed. Now that'll bring us up to the next thing on the... Yes, okay. So that'll bring us to correspondence and information, which there is none on the agenda. So we'll start with, we'll go right into reports and questions from members of council, and then we will have also the ICF under 11. So let's start with Councillor Rennie.
Thanks, Mayor Burrows. I had 3 items to report. First off, we hosted our last Northern Alberta elected leaders meeting on Friday, and it's been very interesting to chair such a large group of Northern leaders. Mayor Burrows was able to attend as well, and we both saw how interesting it was when the topic of advocating healthcare during COVID came up. There's many polarized views on this. A heads up, or perhaps you've already been contacted in regards to the investigation the RCMP have underway regarding the recent fake news posted on social media regarding Woodlands County. I understand that Facebook already removed the posts. I have to say that I've never had so many calls, emails, or messages regarding clarification on the misuse of information, and these people are so furious after to learn that they've been fooled. If you haven't had your interview yet, it took me about an hour and a half at the RCMP station, and many questions were about who was behind this and the relations with council members. And what I found interesting was that the investigation was partially trying to determine if election fraud has been committed to try to influence financial gain through the use of false information. And I was quite shocked actually to learn that it carries up to a 5-year prison term if you're found guilty. The last thing I wanted to bring up was Lac St. Anne Foundation is dealing with mandatory vaccinations the province is pushing on all subcontracting staff. And as we're only starting to gather information on this, I don't want to go into the details, but I have to say it's putting groups like Lac St. Anne Foundation, and I'm sure Barhead's no different, in quite a predicament where we're expected to enforce regulations put in place by another level of government. So I'm sure we're going to hear lots more about this in the near future. That's everything I have.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rennie. We'll move on to Councillor Prestige.
It's been fairly slow the last couple of weeks, but I know the residents in Blue Ridge are very excited about getting the road west of the community hall fixed this week. So thanks to administration for getting on that now. And other than that, it's been fairly slow.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Prestige. Councillor Kush?
Same thing, I had a few board meetings that are getting canceled here just due to people not being able to, I guess, participate due to sicknesses and stuff. So that kind of slowed things down a bunch. Same thing as Councillor Rennie. I had my phone and email and everything go crazy over the video, and we'll see where that all plays out here next meeting.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kush. Councillor Klein?
Thanks, Member Burrows. Just a couple things. I had a request in the last couple of weeks from a couple that live on Main Street to do a tremendous light display at Christmas time. This year they're doing, I think if I remember correctly, the other day he told me he's putting up 64,000 lights. There'll be a glow. You might be able to see it from Whitecourt. 64,000 lights he's putting on their property. And he wanted to put up a very large fake tree and put some lights on it. They were limited in space because of what they've got there. The request was if he could maybe put this tree on, there's like an alley or right away there the county owns in between their property and the museum. The only thing the county uses it for underneath there is disposal waste or water off the street that goes out. So I phoned over, and I want to thank Rick at the office over there. He said, well, if it makes the town look better, I have no problem with it. Tell them to go ahead. So I want to thank Rick for that. The other thing, just in the last week or so, both the Ag Service Board Committee and our Economic Development Committee put members on a small committee to look at setting up a website for small agricultural producers where we as a council can, or as a community and county, go out and maybe do some advertising or help them sell their wares. The open farm days this year was a huge success again, even with COVID going on. I think the one we had down in Anselmo had 10 different people or families involved, and we had 2 others besides that, and the one at Blue Ridge, because in addition to the family, wasn't open this year, but they're always there when we have something going on. So what we're going to try and do, and we set up a committee. Don's on it, Bert is on it, myself, Linda Renfort, and Greg Thompson put his name forward. We're going to be sitting down in the next little while to come up with ideas to set up a website where we can help these small agricultural producers. Everybody wants to buy local. If we can help them sell their wares, it's in our best interest. So I'm looking forward to getting that started as soon as we can. That's all I got.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Klein. Councillor McQueen.
Just a few meetings as usual. MPC meeting. We had a community service meeting. That's where the thing came along about the Christmas decorations and helping out Lindy on. And we also had the Ag Service Board meeting, and as Dawn and Councillor Klein talked about there, we discussed what's going on this fall with the ag industry. So it doesn't look too promising this year, but hopefully the guys get a good buck for their grain and whatever else that's coming off at high quality and everything. And we can only hope that the cab market holds on for a few months until the guys can get a few dollars in their pockets for the fall. So that's about it. Everything else is business as usual.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Councillor McQueen. Councillor Govenlock.
So I've been rather focused on defending the issues that I brought forward at the August 16th council meeting there with regards to a video that had been prepared by a fairly well-known member of the community. And I want to ask Mr. Burrows if he's familiar with that video on the August 16th that had been cut and pasted there. Did he view that video?
Yes, I viewed the video.
And when you viewed the video, did you think that it accurately reflected what took place at that August 16th meeting?
I'm not under interrogation by you at the moment, so if your opinion is that it didn't accurately reflect something, and again, I had nothing to do with the actual video, so if you want to make more allegations, go ahead.
Did you take any steps to correct the misinformation and defamation that was contained in that video?
I watched the video, and no, I didn't take any steps. Again, I don't take any steps one way or the other, but we've had this discussion when this topic comes up.
Were you asked by anybody on council or the public to address the matter?
No.
Okay, so Mr. Klein didn't phone you with regards to asking why you had not responded to the misinformation?
You can allege whatever you want. What's your council report, Councillor Govenlock?
Those are questions, Mr. Burrows, and they're very serious matters when somebody takes and attempts to portray a video as an official county video there, which is 7.5 minutes in length, as opposed to the actual council meeting, which was several hours in length, and pretends that the information contained in that video reflected the discussions that took place at the meeting. And it puts the county in a very unprofessional perspective, not only the county, but the councillors who supported that motion. And the fact that when 2 years ago, I wrote a letter there regarding inviting the public to respond to reviews of the budget for the 2019 timeframe, all of a sudden, Mr. Burrows appears in the paper saying you need to be accountable for the words and actions you choose, but he didn't make that choice this time. So I'm going to ask Mr. Frank the next question, because this video surfaced on YouTube or surfaced on Facebook. And so on Facebook, it's my understanding that Woodlands County has a website and a Facebook page. And I have put together a letter to correct the misinformation and distortion that was out there. And I submitted it to our Executive Secretary, Shannon, to have posted on the county's website or Facebook page, but she needed the blessing of the CAO. I want to ask Mr. Frank, what's the purpose of the website and the county Facebook page, and who controls it? That's my first question.
Yeah, Your Worship, in accordance with our social media policy, it's administration that puts the information up.
So it's not a two-way communication tool. It's intended to be one-way communication?
That's correct.
Well, that's interesting and it rather disappoints me that administration would be the censors of the information that's out there. And they didn't take and pay attention to this particular issue. They were comfortable with the distortion and the misrepresentation of facts and didn't want the public to have the correct information. That's extremely disappointing from my perspective. So to that extent, I'm going to put forward a motion for council to consider. And that is that the letter to the editor that I drafted and submitted to the administration for publication on the county Facebook page or website. My motion will read that administration as immediately as possible publish or include on the web page or the Facebook page the letter that I put forward, and I have shared that correspondence with other members of council, including Mr. Rennie, Mr. McQueen, and Mr. Klein, whose reputations were blemished as a result of one irresponsible individual of Woodlands County.
Mr. Frank, you had your hand up there for a moment.
Your Worship, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. So, motion on the floor from Councillor Govenlock. Councillor Klein, do you wish to speak?
So John, Mayor Bros, I agree something should be put there, but in my opinion, I mean, we've worked well as a council off and on for the last number of years, and I think if anything's put there, it should be coming from the mayor. To have individual councillors doing it, you know, we all have input, but you are the leader of the organization, and it should be coming from the mayor. It shouldn't. It shouldn't be coming from me. And if I have issues about a topic, I shouldn't be coming to council and saying, well, I formulated a letter. I want you to put it there. It needs to be coming from you as a representative of all of us.
Okay. Somebody else had a hand up there. Councillor Govenlock?
Well, with respect to Councillor Klein's perspective, Mr. Burrows had that opportunity to correct the distortion, the defamation, the malicious content that contained in there. He didn't do that and so somebody needs to show some leadership, and I've taken that initiative to refute the scam that the public was given to, because not only does it misrepresent the facts and lead the public with a misunderstanding, but I have received a number of rather malicious emails and phone calls, one of which I've still kept recording, threatening my life. And when individuals who are as irresponsible as the author of this stuff puts people in that position, then legal sanctions need to be taken to change that kind of behavior and conduct. It's extremely important that the public get the actual facts with regards to these, not a cut and paste edited video that is pretended to support the mayor there and be an official video of Woodlands County. It needs to be out there with regards to the facts.
Councillor Kush?
Just a quick question on this to administration. Has the county ever put a response to any other video or social media post before on our website?
Your worship, through to Councillor Kush, not that I'm aware of in regards to, we do respond to general questions, but that would be to the extent.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Frank. So just in responding to these allegations that are being made seemingly against me, when we were dealing with things that Councillor Govenlock had put in the paper, they had his name attached to them. They were put in the paper by him, signed by him. The letter was sent in by him. They were his words. I am not responsible for what somebody else does. I don't know what world people are living in when things like this happen. You can't make people responsible for other people's actions. Maybe there's a different opinion going on, but again, I don't have communication on this particular issue, and I really resent the fact that you're trying to paint me in this light. But you know, it's a good job trying to do that during the election. You know, good on you. But no, I reject those claims that are made by Councillor Govenlock. The words that were on there, and I've done plenty of TV interviews as well. Like the news will put you in front of it. I've done 20 or 30 minutes worth of interviews, and they'll clip together about, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds of the whole thing. And then they've even included ones from interviews that were prior to that. So I don't understand the connotation that's going on here. If the RCMP want to lay charges, then I guess that's up to them. Councillor Govenlock?
Yeah, again, just to correct Mr. Frank, as it appears we have to, the communications officer put some kind of a response together there that didn't reflect any refute of the misinformation. And when you withhold information, you are distorting the information every bit as much as if you take and do the cut and paste as this individual did to distort and to defame there. And so the public has a right to ask questions and get accurate information there. And so my motion stands.
Okay, well, again, the motion's on the floor from Councillor Govenlock. Any other discussion on it? Don't see any. Okay, Councillor Rennie?
Mayor Burrows?
You know,
Sorry, there's one more speaker here. Councillor Klein?
Sorry about that, Mayor Burrows, and I'm one of those guys that likes to stick to procedures, and if we're going to do this properly, it's no different than what happened before when Councillor Govenlock put something in the paper. If we have an issue and it addresses and it's a concern of the entire council, the message must and should come from the mayor. For each one of us to start doing things on our own, it's one of those, you know, I think other municipalities can sit back and laugh at us. It frustrates the hell of me that we're to this point. If we're going to send a message out that to address the concerns that were brought up during that video, the reply back must come from the mayor.
Councillor McQueen?
So I just got one question. That's to Councillor Klein. Just want to know, did you phone Mayor Burrows and ask him to write a letter when this thing started, as Councillor Govenlock said?
If I may reply to that, I phoned John the next day, and because my phone was ringing off the hook, and if I remember correctly, John, you said we'd have to bring it up at the next meeting for council consideration, and I just left it at that.
Right.
We can't be doing our own things. We either work and function as a council, or we don't. And if we don't, you see what's happening. We'll leave it at that.
But to be clear, to Dale's question, did you ask me to write a letter?
No, I just said we needed to get something out to the public to address the concerns and explain exactly what happened. You said we need to bring it up at the.
And again, I think that, so first of all, if you want to bring this kind of activity, I mean, all the guns obviously seem pointed at me, or knives are out or whatever. If you want to bring this kind of action against me, that's fine, but it should be done under the council code of conduct. And the second part is that, I've lost my train of thought here. It goes back to the way that we conduct a council meeting. When council allows individual members to bring up an issue that are really about enforcement on an individual level, and the answer of council is, you know what, we're going to go after this by a bylaw. So this is like school teacher behavior, where, you know, you say, you know what, if Johnny doesn't sit down, then nobody gets to eat their lunch. And they do compliance through that kind of a thing. And that's no different than trying to apply a bylaw to an issue, which is really an enforcement issue. When that issue came before us, again, there was no background, there was no police report, there was no evidence, there was no anything. And the first thing that this council did is it went to going after changing a bylaw, using a community standards bylaw. And Councillor Govenlock did bring up the fact that in relation to the gun range. So he wanted something, you know, that would actually curtail firearms usage later on. I'm reading the motion right here, that council directs administration to get a legal opinion with regards to the requirements to verify vaccination for individuals entering council chambers. You can word that however you want, but that looks like a vaccine passport to me. And again, we didn't have any discussion on this. It was a one-off, and boom, we end up running with it. So no, again, if you want to bring this kind of action against me, I'm fine. I got big shoulders, I can handle it. But you're going to have to, I think you should do it the proper way through the code of conduct. Councillor McQueen?
Yeah, John, Mayor Burrows, I don't think it's anything that has to do with anything about throwing under the bus. I think it's just clarification again. And I don't think it had anything you said to changing the bylaws. It was basically to look and see what we had in our bylaws or what we had in our community standards that would work to alleviate that or straighten it out or whatever. That's what I was under the assumption we were doing. It wasn't to change anything. It wasn't to make anything any different. It was, what do we have in the toolbox that'll work that we can deal with this, while with the shooting or whatever else up there, that individual. And I think that's where that was supposed to be. It had, this whole thing with this video is a part that just irked me right to the hilt. And it was the same thing. I had people phoning saying, why would the county put that out? It made it look like we'd done it, like the county had done it. And I thought we should have some kind of leadership here that would show that we didn't do that. We didn't, that thing was so chopped up, it was pathetic. And to not have any reply back, that was just the hard part. And again, I stayed out of it. I just answered the questions the best I could with anyone that called me. And I said, I don't mess around on Facebook. I don't fool around with that crap. But I said, there's more to the story than what you're seeing. And to be honest with you, I never even looked at the video because I knew it would just piss me off to no end. And that would be that. And actually, you know, I had probably 3 or 4 people phone and said, there's something wrong with that. I can just tell by the way it was done. And they were just using common sense. And I said, you're right. There's more to the story. It'll come around. It'll come around. So I don't have an issue with Councillor Govenlock explaining his side of what he done, because he's right. He shared that letter with some of us, and I seen it, and it was very well written, and he signed his name to the bottom of it. I'd encourage him to throw it in every paper he could find, just to get it straight and put this to bed, because it's not right. It's not right what's happening here.
Councillor Govenlock. Councillor Govenlock. Okay, we seem to have lost Councillor Govenlock. Councillor Press, did you have your mic open?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I guess I didn't mute my mic. So I'll start again. The problem I
So
have.
I'm sorry, Councillor Govenlock, are you now alleging that somebody muted your microphone?
Yeah, I didn't unmute mine, Mr. Burrows, there, so I will start again. So the
Okay.
problem I was addressing is the fact that when you get an individual, as identified in this scenario, who wants to target and defame any member of council who wants to be responsible in the execution of his responsibilities or hers, whatever the case may be, and you put a target on that person's back, whether it's me or Jim Rennie or Luke Mercier, as this individual chose to target there, and put at risk our reputations, and in this case, my life, because of the threatening statements that were made, I find extremely unacceptable, and the municipality has an obligation to make sure that the things that are put out on the pretext of representing council discussions and meetings are accurate. And that didn't happen. Mr. Burrows didn't take the action necessary to take and correct the statements that were made. And this particular individual is looking for one more vote to turn around the lawsuit that Woodlands County is using to enforce regulations pertaining to his development. So it's extremely important that these kinds of actions are addressed by all of council, because yeah, I might be the target this time, but somebody's going to be another target if we don't act.
Mr. Frank?
Your worship, members of council, I would recommend that you go into closed session to further have this discussion, due to the fact that you're putting yourself at some liability towards future potential legal action.
Excuse me.
We have a motion on the floor.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion? With that, I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie?
Well, I appreciate Councillor Govenlock's concerns, and I feel confident that the RCMP are already addressing the death threat that was made. So in this case, I think it's best if the message, as Councillor Klein said, comes from the mayor. So I'm going to vote against the motion.
Okay. Councillor Prestige?
I'm opposed.
Councillor Cush?
Opposed.
Councillor Klein?
As I said before, it's one of those divide and conquer. Either we're united we fall, or united we stand. If it doesn't come from the mayor, I can't support it, even though I believe in what Ron's trying to put out there. So I have to be opposed, because since it's not coming from the mayor.
Okay, Councillor McQueen?
Yeah, I'll be opposed to this motion also, but I do encourage Councillor Govenlock to get his message out there via the papers, whatever means he has, just to get the record straight.
Councillor Govenlock?
Well, I certainly support the motion, and it'll be interesting to see whether the next motion is that Mr. Burrows responds with the actual facts that reflect the discussion that took place.
I'm opposed. So that motion's defeated. Mr. Frank, you have your hand up.
Yeah, your worship, members of council, not to belittle or to continue on with this discussion. I believe that you want to make sure that any further discussions you have is in closed session regarding this matter, due to my previous comment.
Well, I think I'd like to have all the smears out in public for myself, if you want to continue the conversation. Councillor Govenlock?
No, we've heard from council. That's where we will be leaving the matters at this point there. Perhaps the news media will conduct some further interviews with regards to those of us who sit on council that are prepared to be honest and work hard for the residents of the municipality. Thanks.
Okay. I'll take a motion to accept the council reports for information. Councillor Rennie?
Actually, I wanted to make a motion that we would proceed with the mayor making a statement on our social media that the video was in fact not produced by Woodlands County and that the information was not contextually correct.
Okay, motion on the floor from Councillor Rennie. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Frank, your hand's up again. You just
apologize, your worship.
Okay. No discussion on the motion. Okay, I'll call the question. Councillor Rennie?
In favor?
Councillor Prestige? Councillor Prestige?
Oh, sorry, opposed.
Okay, running out of room on my page here. Councillor Klein?
Did you miss Councillor Cush?
Oh, Councillor Cush.
Opposed.
Councillor Klein?
I said before, it has to come from the mayor, so I'll be in favor of that one.
Okay. Councillor McQueen?
In favor?
Councillor Govenlock? Councillor Govenlock? I don't see him in the meeting anymore. Mr. Frank?
Council, he's left the meeting. I can ask him to request to rejoin.
Did I ask Councillor McQueen? I did. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and vote opposed, and especially when I'm supposed to be apologizing, and the one councillor, especially Councillor McQueen, admitted that he's actually never even seen the video. So I'm supposed to apologize for something he's never seen, that I didn't do, wasn't in, and wasn't put out or endorsed by the mayor. So I'll vote no.
Mayor Burrows, can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I didn't accuse you of making anything. I didn't accuse you of any of that bullshit. And you know goddamn well that I don't piss around with Facebook. I never have. And but I had enough people tell me what was on there, and enough people tell me how that thing was chopped up, that I trust the people I'm dealing with. I'm really wondering how I trust any of you anymore. And it's very obvious the way this motion is just played out with a 3-3 split or a 4-3 split again. Who's afraid to talk about it? Who's afraid to put the note out saying it was all bullshit? That's the problem. That's right there. I'll leave it at that. But go ahead. You guys, you'll be running the show in the next few months. So knock yourself out. I'll leave it alone.
Mr. Frank?
Your worship, Mr. Governlock has left the meeting.
Okay. The motion is tied, then 3-3, and a tie is a defeat. Okay, that brings us to a motion to accept, of course, council reports.
Mayor Burrows, did you have anything to report?
I think we beat the reports to death here at this point.
Okay,
There was a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, but I think I think things are pretty soured now. I would have liked to have had an opportunity to have this conversation with council members if I knew this was coming. But again, if you're going to go on a witch hunt, no, I'm not going to participate. So,
Make a motion to accept the reports for information.
thank you. Motion on the floor to accept the council reports for information. I'll call the question. Councilor Rennie?
In favor?
Councilor Prestige?
In favor.
Councilor Cush?
In favor.
Councilor Klein?
In favor.
Councilor McQueen?
I'll be in favor of Mayor Burrows, but I'd just like to tell you one thing, and I'll be as honest with you as I can. I never seen this coming until you did today either. I had absolutely no idea of what Jim dropped. I had absolutely no idea of that, and none of this was premeditated, is what gets me. But what really bothers me is it won't be straightened out either.
Well, I'm hearing issues about a death threat. Somebody said something about a death threat.
Worship, deal with the motion. Your worship, deal with the motion.
Okay, the motion is, and I vote in favor, so the motion's carried. The issue of a death threat, obviously, if something like that is coming out,
Your worship, move on to closed session.
Okay. The last item on the agenda is a closed session item on the ICF update. So could I get a motion to move in closed session? Councillor Cush.
Mayor Burrows, I'll make the motion to go into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Cush. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all in favor? Oh, sorry, I'll just call the roll. Councillor Rennie?
In favor?
Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
Councillor Cush?
In favor.
Councillor Klein?
In favor.
Councillor McQueen?
In favor.
Councillor Governlock is back or no? No, he's gone. So